be my only person here live. Let's see. Hi guys. I'm gonna make a couple edits and fix a couple things here on Facebook, but why we are setting up, if I would love to hear where you are from. And let's see. Is it showing? Yes. And it's not showing live. It is showing live, but it's not showing public, which is a little bit annoying. I know, but only for friends. It won't do it public. But okay, now I think I fixed it. I'd love to hear where you guys are coming from and where you're at currently while we get situated. Let's see if I can turn the comments on. Yay. I am very, very excited. Hey, Karen. I think you might know Karen. She's had you on. That's how I actually found you, is from Karen. Crystal's here. Tina. Yeah. Hello, Joseph. I just saw you a few minutes ago, Joseph. Awesome, awesome. Yes, if you guys could please do me a favor and share and tag. We got Minnesota all the way in the cold, Carrie. I bet it's snowing there right now. We got Washington. Nice. Vaughn from Kansas. Kansas. What's the weather like in Kansas? Okay, we got Phoenix, Arizona. Nice. All right. As Christopher, can you see the comments, Christopher?
I can't see them yet. I've been looking.
Okay, I was just curious.
Oh, no, I just picked the wrong thing. Now I can see the comments. There we go.
We got North Carolina here too. So my name is Dr. Sharnael Wolverton-Sehon, and I'm with Spitfire.org True TV. This is the first time I've ever interviewed Christopher. I actually saw Mr. Carter on a show that Karen had. I believe it was in the Army, the Kingdom Army. And we have a lot of mutual friends, it turns out. And so back in December, you were doing something, I believe it was like about the Star of Bethlehem and the kings using the stars. And I mean, I was just so impressed with your...
It sounds like me. Sounds like something I would do. Right?
Yeah, I was stoked because I was just really drawn to you personally and your energy, and everything. Your undertone is very loving and secure.
Thanks.
And but I'm also really interested because I have a friend, Laura Eisenhower. I told you guys, told him this off camera, but I'll explain to you guys. Laura Eisenhower is way into this. And I've been friends with her about 3 years, and she actually did a natal chart reading for me like 3 years ago, and I didn't even flinch. I was just like, sure, because I just trusted her. And back in the day, that would have kind of made me nervous, just because I don't know, we were kind of told this is kooky and weird, and you don't deal with this. And I've definitely shifted gears, not just with health and responsibility and essential oils and crystals. Tesla love crystal. There's frequency and energy to everything. And I just recently ran into a lady, Tina St. John, and she's a doctor. She's actually a chiropractor, but she does this on the side, and she did a new one for me. And the way she explained it was so much more, I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm in a different place. We're all growing and evolving and expanding. And so I've been trying to get with Christopher since December. So it's been almost a year that I stuck in a little note. Hey, you want to do an interview? Hey, can I get you now? So I'm just so glad the timing is so great. And thank you for being with us here tonight.
Well, I'm so glad that I am. I did not know that it's been this long in the making, or that we've been trying to make this happen for this long. So
hey, time flies when you're in lockdown, dude.
Right. Yes, it does.
It's like the longest year of like the century. I swear, it feels like 2025, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so here we are. I have a few questions. First of all, I want to hear from you, your backstory. Yeah. How did you get here? like, how did you get involved in all of this? I'd love to hear your story. And I want everyone else to hear too, because I know some of it, but I'd like everyone else to kind of get.
Yeah, well, I mean, I always think stories are wonderful things to share. I always feel like there's wealth in story. And so hearing someone else's always makes me feel good, because I feel like I always take on where they've been. But I always see my own story through kind of a humorous lens. I think that's how I see a lot of life anyway. But I have to say, honestly, wherever I've arrived at, it's certainly never been on purpose. And so I joke with my wife that if I die, I want you to put on my tombstone, I want it etched in there so everybody can see it, the phrase, "He never really knew what he was doing." And I just want everybody to walk by, and just because I think they'll chuckle. And I think it's true. It's true. I've never really known at this, in all this time what I've been doing. But the short version goes something like, I was raised Baptist. I did a lot of growing up in the Carolinas and in Pennsylvania. And I went to college at the College of Charleston, where I studied physics. And that's actually where I met the Holy Spirit. And I became, I would say, a charismatic Christian at some point in that process. And in doing that and sort of being introduced to God's power, I kind of felt like there was something I was supposed to do for the Lord. I was going to go teach physics, and I ended up not doing that. I more or less went into ministry, and I did a lot of things in ministry really poorly. Again, because I've never really known this whole time what I've been doing. And so we tried everything. And honestly, we failed at a lot of things, both my wife and I, and it was glorious failures, because it showed us everything that we weren't supposed to do. And then around about 10 years ago, I was learning a kind of inner healing like prayer from some friends of mine in Columbia, South Carolina, where we lived. And I was really just going to that meeting with them because I thought what they were doing was really cool, and I thought it could help some people. And I thought the best way to learn something is to go through it yourself. So I met with them to learn this kind of inner healing. It was sort of like going back into memories and asking the Lord, okay, where were you in that memory? It's what's commonly known, I think,
the apostate,
theopaustics, or freedom prayer, or sozo, like
really
healing, that they do out west, so something like that. And I show up there, and I had no idea. Again, I've never known what I've been doing this whole time, but that was the moment where, just in one of those exercises, that the Lord just introduced me to the reality of experiencing the heavenly realms before you die. That was the greatest revolution of my entire life, and continues to be to this day. Wow. So I had no idea, even as a charismatic Christian, that what John experienced in Revelation when he said, I was on the Isle of Patmos, but I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day. And you just read that and you're like, good for John, good for the heroes of the faith. But I'll just try to pay my tithe and work on not sinning as much. That's my lot in life. You know what I mean? So I never thought in a million years that would become the most basic way to interact with the Lord. That would become the baseline of how to interact with the Lord, would be to do that in the heavenly realms. And that happened that day. I mean, it was a 3-hour inaugural experience. I spent the first 2 hours of that getting really free from things I never knew I needed to be free from. And then the last hour was just this glorious time with Jesus in the presence of the Father in the throne room. And at the end of that 3-hour inaugural experience, the Lord the Father stands up on the throne. He motions his hand over, opens this door into this lush green garden. And he says, Christopher, you can come here and walk and talk with me as often as you like. And that was 10 years ago. And to this day, I have never wanted for going. Every time I've wanted to go, I've gone, which amounts to every day. I liken it to Jesus's parable of the man who finds the treasure in the field, and he goes back and he buys the whole field. When I sort of stumbled in, not knowing what I was doing, into this, again, this kind of baseline of connecting with God in the Spirit in the heavenly places, I was so hooked. I just thought, I cannot believe, Lord, you're gonna let me see you. have a two-way conversation in real time. I can touch, I can taste, I can hear. All of my senses are working in this plane of reality in the heavens. I was like, I'm never going back to what I was doing. And 10 years later, it's no fad that you're following. It's not some kind of sort of parlor trick. It really is, to this day, it remains the greatest revolution of my entire life. And everything that we're going to talk about today emanates from that. I mean, there's nothing that I can share about the stars, which you and I talked about, that we would cover tonight, or about the winter solstice on December 21st, the Mazzaroth, the angels. All of these things I've experienced are just a direct result of stumbling across this portal into the heavenly places. And then, of course, the side note to that, which isn't much of a side note, it actually became our mission and our call as a family, is that we knew we didn't do anything special to deserve it or to earn it. And we knew that there was nothing that we were doing that made us a good candidate to experience what John was experiencing in Revelation. And so we just thought, well, if it happened to us, it should be available to everyone. And so here we are 10 years later, making it, to the best of our ability, making it as accessible to everyone we possibly can as it was to us in the beginning, which it was an awfully free gift. And I tell people all the time, it's the easiest thing you'll ever do. Doing it in today's society is the challenge. It takes a discipline. In a culture that's bidding everybody to look down at their screens and down at mortal issues, to do what Paul said and to fix your eyes on the unseen eternal things, takes a little bit of a discipline, spiritually and otherwise. But the actual mechanism of doing what John did in Revelation, I will always argue, is the easiest thing we could possibly do, because it's just opening the eyes of your heart, which we call the eyes of your imagination. And that's where we are. So here we are, 2020, 10 years down the road. I have to pinch myself most days when I think about, my goodness, we've been given this access. And again, we want to give it away as freely as it was given to us.
Yes, I agree. I'm going to piggyback a little bit on that. And then too, I did forget to mention, please share, you guys. I don't remember if I said that at the beginning, but I hope you guys can share this right now live, so other people can find us here tonight and be live with it. There's a lot more energy when everybody is here together. There's something about the synchronicities and the energy collective. But I hope you guys can take a second, and if you're on Twitter or Facebook or wherever you are, that you'll take a time to tag and share. But so piggybacking, I didn't know the thing about physics with you. That's a thing for me too. So we got that in common for sure. Yeah. And the Baptist thing, that's interesting too. I went to seminary. I was in ministry 20 years. I still consider myself minister. Like, I'm a naturopathic doctor. I'm an author. I do all this with social media and getting things out. But at heart, since I was 4, I have wanted to just serve, and I didn't know how that would look, but this is service, just loving people and calling people to wake up and connect with God, and service and purpose and truth and all the things. I love that you're talking about basically meditation and prayer and just alone time, to go inward and to reconnect, because you're right. We're presented with over 35,000 choices a day, and we're so bombarded with so much stimuli, probably more than ever in any time that I've been alive, with all the amounts. Yeah, right. I mean, I don't know how old you are. When we grew up, we didn't have too much. We had a couple channels. It went off at a certain time. We had a little bit of video games started to come out, but nothing like it is. And we didn't have phones. And so outside in nature, and there's code and all of that. There's connection with all of that. There's connection to source, being outside in the grass and the sun and on the farm and with the animals, versus, you're right, those screens. And I tease all the time that we're in a box, within the box, within the box, within the box, within the box. It's like, how many dimensions, and they're all just nets. And somewhere,
so true.
Somewhere there's source in there. Source is in our DNA, but if we don't take a second to just remember, I love the word remember, to do again, remember, get with source again, just to reconnect. And that word you used, imagine, I love imagination, to imagination. So it's when we're in that inside that we can say, what is God saying? And we can allow that to permeate into the biofield and radiate out. And then we co-create our next phases of who we are and what we're doing. So I just love that. Tell me the difference. I would like to know, and I have inquiring minds, astrology versus astronomy. Like, what's the deal?
Yeah. Well, there's the difference is sometimes less than what we think. And that it changed from astrology to astronomy at the time where all of those words changed as well. So alchemy became chemistry, astrology became astronomy. It all happened right around 400 years ago. And ultimately, when someone says astrology, they mean a study of the heavens that involves a spiritual element to it. And in context, astrology is bad, right? So in context, when someone says astrologer, you think about a pagan astrologer. You think about someone that's using the stars deterministically to tell you all these, whatever the case may be, tell you when it's a good time to ask that person out on a date or go get that job, all the stuff in the newspaper and the horoscopes.
Like horoscopes, yeah.
So in context, it's bad, right? But in reality, it's simply a study of the heavens, of the stars, of those heavenly bodies that involves a spiritual element. And that's different after the scientific revolution in the 1600s. And that after that period of time, a study of the heavenly bodies was purely materialistic, or in a philosophy term, positivist, in that we were just talking about the actual object in the sky, no spiritual element at all. And of course, that happened with alchemy. Alchemy involves some spiritual practice to it. They weren't just messing with gold and silver. They thought that they were connecting spiritual things with the gold and the silver. And so that changed in the scientific revolution. And it was just like, no, we're just talking about the element, the atoms of this particular kind we call gold and silver and whatever else. So in practice, that's really what the difference is. Now, do you want me to go on and tell a little bit about how I got into this?
I do. I would love to hear about this. Yes.
Yeah. So it's a fun story to tell, if only because, I as I mentioned at the beginning, I studied physics and astronomy at the College of Charleston, and I laid that down, when I graduated to pursue things in ministry. And so, here I am exploring the heavens, starting 10 years ago. And after a few years, I remember the day when the Lord brings me to this beautiful grassy green plain, and it's right by a cliffside, and there's this waterfall pouring over the cliff. And perched there on the edge of the cliff is this beautiful crystalline-like palace. And I remember going to it, and I'm like, Lord, who lives here? Whose home is this? And he says, this is yours. He said, didn't you read, if I go, I will prepare a place for you so that where I am, you may be also. So he's like, this is your inheritance. This is the place that I've created just for you. And so I thought, when I saw that, well, if Jesus is going to show me, it's almost like a realtor at open house, they're ready to show you the place that they've made, And I thought, if God's going to show me this place, I'm going to learn it so well that it's very easy for me to be here so that I can be about my immortal purpose in my immortal home. That's awesome. So as I was learning that place, learning all of its doors and all of its rooms, I found this library. And in that library, one day or 1 week, I can't remember how long ago this was, but it was early on in these journeys, I pulled this book off the shelf called Stars for All Seasons.
Really?
And for weeks, I read that book. Most of the time, I was just hanging on for dear life. And again, people ask me all the time, Chris, is that book on Amazon? No, it only exists in the heavens. I've translated as much of it down as I could in my book, Cosmic Shift.
Oh, okay.
No one in heaven has taken out a copyright infringement lawsuit against me. I've never been in the courts of the Lord and someone was like, hey, you stole that information, from whoever wrote it. I have no idea. But anyway, so I spent weeks holding on for dear life trying to read this book called Stars for All Seasons. And I learned in there everything that, that I tried to convey in Cosmic Shifter, that I do whenever we teach about these things, all the reasons why we should be paying attention to these heavenly bodies, these lights in the sky that God said back in Genesis that they were for signs and seasons and days and years. Like,
Exactly.
it's God's purpose to make this clock, and to use it to teach us all of these things. And the Hebrew Bible has a word for it called the Mazaroth, which we would think of as the word zodiac. That's the Roman word for the 12 constellations that the sun moves through in the course of a year. And it's a beautiful word. Mazaroth translates more or less into the phrase garland of crowns. So that's kind of what this circle of signs in the heavens are thought of to be, is this garland of crowns. And, the sun moves through one a month. And I like to think of it as, and you'll remember this, as God's overhead projector. You remember overhead projector?
I do. I still have one. I use it.
Heck yeah, you do. I mean, that's back in the day. I mean, I miss them. Because you could, you'd go to church and they'd be doing the contemporary music in the Baptist church. It was a contemporary service, and they'd have the lyrics to, like, Lord, I lift your name on high on the overhead projector. And I loved it because it was always wrong. Like, it's always giant at the top and skinny at the bottom. And the person that's doing the transparency can't figure out how to turn it the right way. And half the time it's upside down. And I just miss those days because you couldn't fake stuff back then. Like, these days you can fake a lot. But back then, if it was bad, it was bad, So anyway, think of, like, the Mazaroth as God's overhead projector. It's God's way of saying, when I want all of humanity to see one thing, I'm going to put it in the sky. I'm going to illuminate it with the sun. And it's like God saying, this is part of my purpose or my plan or my character that I'm celebrating this month out of the year. So each one of these months is like a celebration. And, of course, learning this initially, like anybody I think would, you're kind of going, is this okay? Like, am I allowed to look at the constellations? Like, am I allowed to think that God is celebrating something or talking through? And you read that verse in Job 38 where God's talking about the Pleiades, not even a Mazaroth constellation. I love how my shirt is playing.
I just saw that.
It looks like I've got Christmas lights on me or something
does.
like that.
I literally was trying to just see, like, what is going on. But
it's just, sometimes you have to trick the camera. It's just the green screen is all that it is. I could take the picture away, but it'd just be this green cloth behind me, So anyway, God says to Job in 38, and I think it's around verse 12 or something. He says, Job, can you bind up the sweet influences of the Pleiades? In other words, can you stop this constellation from influencing mankind with sweetness, as if there's some frequency coming from these stars, which all of our ancestors, Hebrews included, did not think of stars as inanimate objects. They saw them as part of the angelic orders. They saw them as alive spiritual beings. Even the Jews saw the sun and the moon this way too. So they saw them as these 7 angelic sisters. That's what the Pleiades are, 7 sisters. And that they were just influencing mankind on the earth with this frequency of sweetness. And if that's true about the constellation of the Pleiades, how much more is it true about these, these overhead projector signs that the sun moves through once a month? And so that just led me on a wonderful journey. And I learned about, just again, it being a celebration. I learned about the cosmic ages and the precession of the equinoxes, and why, this is the only clock that God ever made. And this is like just a fun nerd moment here. You'll appreciate this. I'm not sure about anybody else, but let's just have one quick little nerd moment.
I love nerd moments.
It's the only clock that God ever made. And it's so vastly much more beautiful than any clock man has ever made. It's colorful. It's never the same twice. It's amazing. It's an amazing clock. And what we sometimes take for granted is that there weren't accurate clocks the way that we know clocks until like the late 1600s, early 1700s. Like the idea of a grandfather clock with the radial dial, that's just a couple hundred years old. We're talking like 300 years old.
Know that.
I know, it's crazy. We totally take it for granted that we've been able to tell time forever. All our ancestors had until just around 300 to 400 years ago was the cosmic clock, the firmament, and sundials. And that was it. And then someone created a really good pendulum. And that's actually one of the reasons we had a scientific revolution, is because we could, once we could calculate time accurately, we could calculate a lot of things mathematically, but we needed a way to keep time. And that didn't happen until the 1600s. So the next time you look at a clock, just realize that 96% of humanity never saw that. All they had was the sky and sundials.
Wow, I had no idea. You know, I don't think I ever thought of it, but it's so weird to find someone with an actual watch these days is like epic. I mean, where was I? I was in the courthouse a few weeks ago, and you can't bring in your cell phone.
Right.
And I wanted to know what time it was, and I could not find a single person who could tell me what time it is because no one wears a watch anymore. Right. So everyone looks on their phone, going back to the phone situation. But
it's evolved to that point. Yeah.
Yes, but that's very cool, interesting facts there. Thank you.
Right on.
So the difference basically is there was a word change, and it's still kind of the same. And so are you saying there's a guidance somewhat to all of this, or how would you phrase that?
Yeah, well, you know, again, the science word astronomy really is a study of just the physical material stuff. And that old astrology thing, which again, Daniel did, the Hebrews did, every culture around them did. Everybody was looking at the stars and thinking about it spiritually, like what's happening in the heavens, what's being, you know, beamed down like from the Pleiades that's influencing things here. So there really is a spiritual element to the word astrology that's not there in astronomy. But again, it's so uncomfortable for all of us. I mean, like people have tried the word Christology or a Christ-centered cosmology. I mean, there's so many different ways people have tried to say it because no one wants to say the word astrology. And I understand why. I totally get why. So yeah, I think that maybe just understanding it that way is helpful. But what was the second part of your question? Remind me again.
I was just wondering, like, if it was just the wording that's the change, or if there's any sort of guidance. So I don't know if you're familiar with Bob Jones, but he was my spiritual dad. Well, he still is, I guess. I guess he is. He always will be. Yeah. And I traveled with him for 10 years. Yeah. And we went, you know, sometimes a couple weekends a month, different places. And he would say, oh, there's going to be a comet, blah, 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 or notice the moon. I mean, he was way, you know, I don't know if he would say it's astrology, astronomy, I don't know, but he was very, very much into the heavens and kind of trained us that were with him to look into all of that and to pay attention to those things. Yeah. And he was always accurate with anything that he called. It was like he'd have a dream or something, and we would pay attention because it would happen. But and well, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say there is, you know, I struggled to use the word predictive here, but there is an element of the cosmic clock that's really predictive. You know, I wouldn't, you know, I think maybe where we, you know, like we try to say it's not deterministic in the sense that, you know, it doesn't tell you whether to eat turkey or ham for lunch tomorrow, but it certainly tells you what heaven is celebrating. And God does use it as signs, like the classic passage in Revelation where John says in chapter 12, he says, and behold, there was a sign in the heavens, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon at her feet, and a garland of 12 stars at her head. Well, he's talking about Virgo, the only woman in the sky that the sun could be in. And then with the moon's at her feet, and remember the Mazzaroth means a garland of crowns. Yeah. So if she's got a garland of 12 stars at her head, normally that would be the constellation Leo, which has 9 visible stars. So wow. If you have a garland of 12 stars at her head, there needs to be 3 planets in the constellation Leo to make 12 stars at her head. So he's, you know, it's so predictive in that way that even John was going, there's a sign in the heavens where there's Virgo, when the sun's in Virgo and the moon's at her feet, and there's 3 planets in Leo. Wow. Now what are you supposed to look for? You're supposed to look for the woman, Virgo, giving birth to a male son who's going to rule the nations. Like this kingship sign. Just so happens that there was a moment in recent history where Sun was in Virgo, moon was at her feet, 12 stars in Leo, and Jupiter, the symbol of kingship, astronomically speaking, was in her womb for 10 months in retrograde motion before it left. And that was an incredibly rare moment. It also happened on, I believe it was either Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur in 2017. And that was a very rare astronomical occurrence. So I'm not even sure if it's happened since John penned those words. I think that's the first time we saw that in the heavens since then. It's not an easy thing to get to happen in that respect. So yeah, there is a very predictive element to it, because it is God's way of saying, I want humanity to know where they are in the story that I'm telling between me and them. And I want them all to see it at the same time. And that's actually where all the cosmic ages stuff comes in, which is too much for tonight. But, maybe down the road sometime we can crack that.
Oh, for sure. We're going to have you back. I already can tell that this is going to have to be a part 2, maybe even a 3. But for the sake of time,
yeah,
one of the things that keeps kind of looping around in the circles that I run with is this whole December 21st situation. And I know winter solstice, and you mentioned the equinox. Like, this is foreign to me. When I get my people who, like Leslie Davis and Laura, and some of these people are just like, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, okay, I would like to learn this. And I didn't have a book from heaven like you got. I didn't get the download. I got downloads and some other things. But that's what's so great about all of us having our piece. We all have our little pieces, and then we can come together and we can amplify each other and teach each other and learn from each other and grow. But what does it mean to you? Like, explain, because this is like, what, a month and a couple days from now, right before Christmas.
Yep.
What does it mean? Explain.
Oh, yeah. I'm glad you asked. It's probably one of my favorite subjects. And that, the solstices and the equinoxes are designed by God to be important times of the year. So again, there's never a moment, and a friend of mine by the name of Nicholas said this years ago, probably one of the first groups I ever taught about this. And he said when he was trying to share with people the importance of the cosmic clock, and they'd be like, hey, that sounds like astrology, he would just always retort that with, when did the devil create the stars?
Thank you.
When did the devil create the seasons? When did the devil say that these signs are for signs, seasons, and days and years? Like, when did that ever happen? And so it's not his idea, it's God's idea,
Yeah, it's the same thing with so many things, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, essential oils. When I first started working with essential oils, people say like, oh, that's witchcraft. And I was like, there's 1,600 scripture references to essential oils. Crystals. The Levites wore them. Why do you think the Levites wore them? Because there's frequency in them, and they're serving all day, and they need to, on and on and on. And same, how many times? So many times we hear about the heavens, the cosmos, and different things in the Bible. The heavens is the galaxies. So I pay attention to that stuff, and thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, no, it's true. There is a lot that we've sort of laid down on the grounds that because some of the enemy's camp took it and ran with it, that ruins it for everybody else. And then if the enemy can see that, then he knows how to pigeonhole all of us really easily, because all he has to do is touch it, and then we just give it up, and go, oh, it must be his now, because he touched it. So it's always been ours. Like, this has always been God's clock. So something like a winter and summer solstice, and a spring and autumnal or a spring and fall equinox. The idea that those were pagan celebrations and should be avoided is like saying the stars and time and the cosmic clock is pagan and should be avoided. God clearly put the motions of these things in place to mark time in a certain way. It's true that in the Hebrew calendar of events, the Hebrews really marked their celebrations by a lunar calendar. So Hebrew feasts and festivals follow a very strict lunar cycle, but the Gentile nations followed a very solar cycle. So, Hebrew culture does the lunar celebrations well, but look at what the Gentiles celebrate. We do midsummer celebrations and the dead of and the solstice and the winter celebrations better than anybody, And so the idea being, well, maybe that's all wrong. Well, no, it's not wrong. God just loves celebrations, and he didn't give them all to the Jews. He left some for the Gentiles to redeem and to show them as holy, just like the lunar holidays are. So there are these moments in time that whether we're consciously aware of it or not, we're moving in the flow of what's going on in the heavens and on the earth, even when we're not aware. So the winter solstice, for anyone that doesn't know, is the marker that it's the shortest and darkest day of the year. So summer solstice is the longest, brightest day. So we have the most daylight. The equinoxes are when we have equal day and equal night. We have one in the spring and one in the fall. Equinox, just a Latin phrase that means equal night. So we get 12 and 12 on the equinoxes. But in the summer solstice, I think you get like something like close to 14 hours or 13 or 14 hours of daylight. And in the winter solstice, you get that much darkness. So it's this period of time where the earth is getting darker, the days are shorter, and you get to this moment where it's the shortest, darkest day of the year. That's the winter solstice. Now, it's not at all surprising that every northern hemisphere Gentile culture, which is the vast majority of them, they looked at that moment in time as a moment of utter celebration. Because once you got past the 21st, and everybody's watching the sky because it's the only clock they had, and they can see that the sun is coming up earlier and staying up a little later, and everyone goes, oh, the light is going to come back. And by the 25th of December, it's clear that that's happening to someone who's watching the sky, which is why all of these Northern Hemisphere Gentile cultures picked that moment as the celebration, winter solstice celebration. To the Romans, it's Saturnalia. To the Germanic and Celtic people, it's Yule and different things like that. And of course, there's a Hanukkah celebration, but it's not quite on the solstice. Again, it follows a lunar cycle, So that's what's happening on December 21st. Now, to add another layer to that, from the end of November to the end of December, the sun is in the sign Scorpio. Now, it's the only negative sign in the entire Mazzaroth. Of the 12 signs, only one is negative and actually needs to be replaced. And that's a perfect reflection. We saw that in the apostles. Of the 12 apostles of the Lamb, how many were negative and needed to be replaced? Just one. So Judas was representing that Scorpio, that scorpion, which is this symbol. So God's not celebrating something about his character with the sign Scorpio. He's telling us something about the story. And so you know what the scorpion is. It's death, it's mortality, it's sin, it's the fall. It's that phrase, oh, death, where is your sting? Like a scorpion. So that's what's going on there. And that's Judas represented in his group of 12. Now, that's not the end of the story. Just like they replaced Judas, there's a replacement for the sign Scorpio. And that is Aquila, the eagle.
Yes.
And it's kind of like up and to the left of the scorpion. And you're like, well, how do we know that? Okay, well, think of the four cardinal signs of the Mazzaroth would be the scorpion, the lion, Leo, the ox or the bull, which is Taurus, the sign Taurus, and the man pouring out the water, which is Aquarius. Okay, so you had a scorpion, a lion, an ox, and a man. But we don't see that scorpion. Look at the four faces of the living creatures around the throne of the cherubim, and you see the lion, you see the ox, you see the man, but what goes there? You see the eagle. You see the Aquila. That's that fourth cherubim face and the fourth face in the living creatures. You can even look at some old Dark Ages Celtic documents like the Book of Kells, where they illustrated the four Gospels, and each of the four Gospels got one of those cardinal Mazzaroth signs. But again, it was Mark was the bull, Matthew was the lion, Luke was the man, and John was the eagle. The Gospel of John was the eagle because, of course, John saw Christ from a very heavenly perspective. So all this to say, what's going on? And most people, their Mazzaroth dates are wrong. So I hate to be the one that's going to, break that into pieces right now. But what you think, everybody knows. I mean, you know what sign you're born under, or you think you do. And I know we're not supposed to talk about that, but everybody knows, right? But everybody's dates are wrong. And it's
Really?
because of this thing called the precession of the equinoxes. We'll talk about it another time. But in short, the dates that they put in the newspaper for each sign in the horoscope section are what was happening 3,000 years ago, not what's happening now. It's not where the sun is now. So I grew up, my birthday's July 31st. Everyone told you you're a Leo, right? But then you can get astronomical software and you can pull up July 31st, 1978. You wondered how old I was? I'm a spry 42. So you can go back to that date and look where the sun is. And it's dead center in Cancer, not in Leo, because the whole clock shifts every 2,100 years. Now, so again, what I'm going to tell you about what's going on in the sky at the end of December, you may be like, really? Yes, it's true. So from the end of November to the end of December, the sun is in Scorpio. Now, I'm going to guess people thought it was in Sagittarius during that time, but that's not the case. Think around this time, it's the 19th today of November.
Yes.
We're getting into Scorpio right now. But when we're in that time of year, God isn't just celebrating the scorpion, because why would God do that? God's celebrating the eagle. So if you're in Christ, there's no scorpion in you. If you're, born during this time, it's not like, oh my gosh, I'm carrying the scorpion. That's not it. It's the eagle for all those who are in Christ. But what happens at this time of year is that it's the only part of the Mazzaroth where there's two signs working at the same time, because one is the replacement of the other. So what you see from the end of November to the end of December, right about the equinox, around the 20th to 21st, every year, is you see the worst of humanity and you see the best of humanity. You see both of them juxtaposed together. You see the scorpion on Black Friday. Now, we're probably not going to have much of a Black Friday this year because of COVID. So they're probably not going to let thousands of people storm the Walmart to get the flat screen TV, right? But you see humanity in its mortal pit from the end of November to the end of December. You see us become the most materialistic we are the entire year. You see, if people have substance abuse problems, this is when it gets them. If they have family problems, this is when it gets them. This is what happens. But at the exact same time that's going on, you'll watch humanity rise up to show something that they've never shown before. So if there was ever mercy in people, you'll see it come out more this time of year. If there's kindness, you'll see it, generosity, giving. You'll see all of that selflessness come out at the same time of year. So it's this dichotomy. It's the one part of the Mazzaroth where you really get to see what God is celebrating juxtaposed with what the enemy is celebrating at the same time. And humanity gets to choose what they're going to do.
Wow.
Now, all that to say, you've got this beautiful winter solstice moment where it's the darkest, shortest day of the year. And right after that, we celebrate Christmas. Now, I'm pretty sure everybody watching this cast, tonight doesn't think Jesus was born on December 20. I think we've all moved past that at this point. Everybody's pretty sure it's probably around Tabernacles in that September area, September, October, the fall time. So why is it such a big deal? Why is Christmas such a big deal? Because it's the celebration of the ending of a season of darkness.
Wow.
And coming into a season of resurrection. It's the fact that the sun is coming back. Now, just take that spiritually now. The brightest light in the sky is like being reborn after the winter solstice, and it's going to come back for longer and longer and longer until we get to the spring equinox when it's equal again, and then longer and longer and longer until we get to the summer solstice when it's out like for, it seems like the night, the night doesn't start till 9 o'clock at night. It's this beautiful time of year. So this moment in December 25th is that all of our ancestors celebrated this principle of coming out of darkness into a new season of light. We're going to live. There's going to be a resurrection from the dead, a resurrection from the dead of winter. We're going to come back to life. The earth is going to come back to life. The trees are going to get green again, and everything's going to grow again. It's this beautiful, beautiful picture. And if you've got Gentile heritage, which I'm assuming is most people on the call tonight, it's amazing to me that, again, God gave all the lunar holidays to the Jews because he loves celebrations. He gave all the solar holidays to the Gentiles because he loves celebrations. And just like Paul said, he wants to bring the two together into one new man. It's not like the Jewish holidays are good and the pagan Gentile ones are bad. That's not how it is. He's just waiting on the Gentiles to redeem them, to celebrate Christmas and to celebrate the winter solstice as he intended for it to be celebrated. So, you asked me too about like, well, what should we expect? I mean, I know we're all living through a pretty crazy time right now. It's been a crazy year, and it's a crazy season right now of a crazy year. First thing I tell people, this last couple of weeks of your life, if you think that's been crazy, that is not going to be the most crazy thing that's going to happen to you in the next 10 years of your life. Just mark those words. This will not be the last crazy thing, and it won't even be the most crazy thing that happens to you in the next 10 years. We're living through a cosmic transition of ages as we speak. These are not gentle times. Transitions between cosmic ages are more like this instead of like this. So this will not be the craziest thing you experience in the next 10 years. But as you go through this season coming up to Christmas, just keep in mind, you're going to see the best and you're going to see the worst. And you get to choose. And you get to, just like the Pleiades influence mankind with sweetness, influence the earth with that frequency of sweetness. Think about what's influencing the earth from the eagle, coming up to a heavenly perspective, coming up to where your vision is accurate and pure, and you're seeing stuff from where God is seeing it from that perspective. The strength of the eagle is its sight. It's the height from which it soars. So this time of year, if you feel like God's going, folks, like Paul said to the church, fix your eyes, not on what you can see, but on what's unseen. Because what's seen is temporary, but what's unseen is eternal. That's what's going on in December 21st, and with the scorpion and the eagle and everything that's going on in our world today. I hope that's at least a little bit to go on from here.
Yeah, just a few things. I mean, I've studied the eagle a lot because our ministry, or Swiftfire International, is an eagle. And when I met Bob, I had an encounter with this golden eagle specifically, and I did a lot of studying on eagles in general. And one of the things that are specific about eagles, especially the golden eagle, is they will not eat dead food that they find wherever.
Yeah.
They will only eat their own kill of their own hunt. And what I'm hearing you say is not to look around at all the circumstances and not to take all the meat from wherever, but to go inward, go inside, and find your own nourishment, find your own fresh meat, find your own fresh manna, and really connect with that. Because when we are in that space, and my book actually talks about how it changes your biofield. That's where the Psalms 91 is, when we're really, really in that connected part. And then eagles fly high to get away from whoever too. They can go higher than anyone else. So those lower kind of crow type buggarts, they like want to get you, but you know what? We got to soar above the snake line, which was what Bob would say on a regular, let's just stay above the snake line. Yeah. But it's interesting because I just interviewed Charlie Ward. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
I don't believe I am.
He was just on here this afternoon, and he works with the quantum systems. And I'm also working a lot with Robert Steele, who's ex-CIA, and he's been on the phone with Sidney Powell for the last few weeks about what's going on. And all of everyone that I've talked to who are insiders, because that's mostly the people that I work with, people who are just kind of in government or who have a lot of access to real information, they're giving us the dates of like the third weekend of December to see things really, really shift.
Yeah.
And how interesting is it that we're, that whole saying, it's always darkest before the dawn kind of deal. Yeah. It's like, okay, it might get really short and cold and black and dark and all those things, but there may be a shift behind that, hopefully. And I do agree. I don't think that we're all going to be like, oh, okay, bye, we did it, it's good, and everybody just, I think this is a real time for humanity to stand up and to remember and to get their courage back, to remember their courage and their love. And like you have said, I think 2 or 3 times now, making the choice. That is what I keep hearing you say, is that we all have the choice. We'll all see the contrast. Yes. And we can either engage in the lower frequencies and or get sucked in, because how many of you posted something on Facebook or whatever, and then next thing you know, you find yourself in an argument, or you want to defend or whatever, and then you're just pulled into it. It's like, who cares? Like we have the choice to just like block or heart, and move on. But these choices are real. Yeah. And with each choice is an energetic cause and effect. Absolutely. And with each choice, we have to remember we are responsible, meaning we are responsible. And we can either react. And to me, as a doctor, reaction is when someone gets medicine and there's something that, bad, a rash or something, say, oh my gosh, you're having a reaction. But when there's a response, that's different. It's like there can be a shift, but it can be positive. And we can all take what's been dealt or what's happening or whatever, it's the stars on the planets or just humanity. So many things are being surfaced, and it's ugly, and it's, but it's good that it's coming up, and light is being shown on some of these things. And, that's one way to shift everything. And, again, going back to resting, eating good, magnesium baths, meditations, prayers, reading positive things, being around positive things, being in groups of people, whether you can physically or just on groups or internet, or listening to a podcast like this or something. But animals, getting in the sun, getting in nature, we all have those choices. And like you've said too, turning off the TV, turning off the news, maybe not engaging in some of the things that we know are going to pull us into that lower vibration, and try to, just, get in our happy place, watch something funny, be around funny people.
If it's causing panic, if it's making you feel the sting of the scorpion, probably should turn it off. Yeah.
Well, isn't there like a scorpion and a frog like thing where the scorpion was going across the river and the frog? What is that I'm thinking about?
Like Mazzaroth wise or different?
Oh no, I think there was like a story of like the scorpion wanted to bring a frog across the water or something, or get on the back. I don't know. Somebody will know here.
Someone will let you know.
Yes.
Well, but if I may, I wanted to share that. Again, this is a time of year that's very special to me. Like I really feel it. It's a very productive time for me. And even when the world sort of slows down and the earth is slowing down, moving to that winter solstice, it's a good time for everybody to slow down. So again, like when everything around you in nature is going, what we're going to do is we're going to get, we're not going to go grow and do all this stuff. We're going to bring it together. We're going to reflect. We're going to go deeper. Like you were talking about finding that inward place. And so I really love to celebrate Christmas well for some of those reasons. And I did this last year, and I'm going to do it again this year, is on December 15th, which is a Tuesday night. I'm going to do a massive Zoom call that'll be open to everyone. And it's just for the sake of going into the heavens to celebrate Christmas with the Father. So if you're interested in kind of taking a heavenly journey and using the eyes of your heart to do that, and I would love it if you were there. It's a very easy thing. I just put the Zoom link out there on Facebook, to anybody who's watching on that's pretty much how I've advertised that in the past. And it's free. It's open. Last time we did it, we had a couple hundred people on there from all over the world. And it's just, it's just simple. It's just, we're going to go up in the spirit, and we're going to be there with the Father, and celebrate Christmas in the heavens and see what is it that the Father wants to give to us, and how does he want to celebrate the holiday with us. So if that's something that you'd like to do, it's just, we do it just because I don't know, it blesses our heart so much to do it. So
definitely send me the link. Yeah, send me the link.
Yeah.
And I will post that in with this post so all you guys can come along. And then also he has this book, Cosmic Shift. And
I do.
I hope tell us a little bit about that.
Do you want to do a shameless product placement moment? That's what I call it.
Sure.
You got to do one,
I
right?
wanted to have it to hold it up, and I didn't even know he had a book till like 3 days ago. And I was like, "Can you please bring the book and hold it up because mine doesn't come till tomorrow, so I'm going to miss it by a day." But thank you. Hold it up a little longer so everyone can see.
Yeah. So, well, here I've got a couple here. This is let's see. My green screen's acting blue.
Okay.
There's Caught Up in the Spirit. That's the first book I wrote, which is really a chronicle of kind of going from my charismatic Christian life to experiencing life in the Spirit. I wish I had a copy of In the Palaces of Heaven, but I don't. It's somewhere around here, but that book's out there too. And that was really my first couple of years of just wandering around the heavens, learning about the angels, learning about my home in heaven, that sort of thing. And then here's Cosmic Shift, which is still kind of, the green screen's playing with it a little bit. And this is the first third of this is all about the Mazzaroth and the cosmic ages. And then the rest of the book really deals with the transitions, what that's like living through a transition in a cosmic age. And then the last couple chapters are really my theories about what we're going to find out in this next age. And so the last couple chapters are my speculations about what's coming. And then I'm kind of really proud about this one. This is our children's book, Angels All Around Us.
Love it.
Actually, I'm going to read this, I think, is like on a Facebook Live, maybe next week or something, just like a bedtime story.
Nice.
But it's just, I really wanted to tell the story of the angels. I never thought I would do it this way, but maybe you can kind of see a little bit.
It's beautiful. Whoever did the illustration.
And I don't know, we really enjoyed, we enjoyed telling the story. And anyway, that's the children's book about the angels. So, there's a shameless product placement moment officially over. That's all. I
asked you to do it. So that's what we're doing. And I'm going to get, if you can text me your website too.
Yes.
I can post your link, your website. He is on Facebook.
Yep.
Any other platforms we should shout out here?
Yeah, I mean, Facebook's easy. It's where I put a lot of the information out there. You can search for my name, Christopher Carter, and that's my personal page. Or you can find my kind of like official author page, which is just Christopher Paul Carter, my full name. And then my website is discovertheheavens.org.
Okay, awesome. It looks like Karen beat me to the punch. She's already got it in here. She's on it.
Karen's awesome. Karen beats everybody to the punch. And shout out also to a good friend, Danny Orser, who chatted in here as well. I just saw him yesterday. Yeah. Awesome.
Well, I got to fly all of a sudden. Well, I think you're amazing, and I hope we can do this again.
Thanks for saying that. I hope we can too.
Yeah, and I love that you did a kid's book because, oh my gosh, I was just talking with my husband last night, or maybe it was today, whatever time. And we were discussing how different the world is, not just because of social media, but because of the programming and just, the ideals and the thoughts that are way just so contrary to just the things that we thought, morals and character. And so I love that you're actually, training them up with, the information from the get-go. I think that is great. And I love the pictures.
Oh yeah. And kids do this so easy. They don't have to work through their hurdle of trusting their imagination like we do.
Yes.
Like we have so much baggage when it comes to the eyes of our heart, which Paul didn't even have the word imagination, or he probably would have used that, but it didn't even exist as a word then. So he says eyes of your heart. We say imagination today, but kids just do that so easily. They experience the heavens easily. They talk to the angels easily. So for them, it's like no leap at all. So it's like, why not do this when they're young,
Well, and it does say, giving you the desires of your heart. And that word desires actually means of the stars. So again, there's a lot in the scriptures if you just dig. And I encourage people to actually look at the Hebrew and the Greek, because all the different translations are not going to be exact. And and there's stuff missing. There's stuff that's really, I don't think anyone meant to do it. Maybe there's a little bit of that, but there's just some misinformation when it's really written out a whole different way than when the intent was or the context of it. So I always look at the Strongs. I'm a geek when it comes to like the real stuff. I look into
nerd moments.
I'll go through like a whole sentence, and I'll look up every word, and I'll go, oh, this really means this, and we've learned this, and this is what it really means. It's like I did the whole Lord's Prayer like that, and I have a whole thing on that. But thank you again.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I will be seeing you again, and we'll all be there for December 15th. And also, for those of you who want to hang out a little bit longer at 8:30, I will be having Jason Q. We're going to be talking about quite a few things. The ball, the black box. We're going to be talking about the stuff in current events that are happening right now with Sidney Powell and some of the inside information that's happening. And even a little bit about what we were talking about with raising the kids up and Trump's focus on making sure that the children, all of us, understand the Constitution, because I think that's going to be an issue here where we're all going to have to remember what it really says. And when there's judgment, that there's a judgment that's correct. And judgment can be bad or good depending on which side you're on, but we're going to hold the Constitution. So that'll be at 8:30. So we just have a little 30-minute break if anyone wants to pop back on. But you can find me at swiftfire.org. Please do get my newsletter and do it fast, because some of these platforms, again, there's been a few platforms that have been removed just in the last week. And it seems I thought it was going to get better. I thought they kind of stopped and gave us a little break, but especially being in trouble. But there were some more that vanished again here this morning. And so, yeah, definitely you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and all of that. And also, I'm going to send you, Chris, my book, The Science of Miracles, that I was talking about. And I'll send you my card deck, too. Crystals. Okay, how do I do it?
We need to have a book exchange.
I will send all of this stuff to you. And so I'll get your address and all that and have it sent out this week. But
sounds great.
You guys, yes, thank you again. And y'all have a great night. And y'all make sure to follow him and make sure to get the notifications so you're actually seeing what he's posting and what he's doing and what he's up to. All right. Thanks, you guys. Stay true. We'll talk soon. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.